it's not that these fights aren't winnable, but they have to be fought. And that's why we're doing Sunday. I mean, you got to start somewhere, rebuilding the kind of basic support for clean energy around the country.
Welcome, everyone, to the July 2025 edition of The Impact, a sustainable CT podcast. For your edification, your enlightenment, and your entertainment, too. I'm Jim Hunt, Communications Director at Sustainable CT. So if you're looking for someone to blame for this podcast, well, you can blame me. But remember, this is never a one-way conversation. We always want to hear from you for our edification and enlightenment. Drop us a note, won't you, to info@sustainablect.org. The Impact is brought to you in part by the Common Sense Fund. The Common Sense Fund supports environmental change through education, policy initiatives, promotion of carbon-free energy sources, and stewardship of our natural resources. The fund promotes action both on the environment and in the arts that is practical, creative, and addresses social needs, and we are oh so glad they do. Visit them at commonsensefund.org. Remember, we can't do any of what we do without you. We don't have a magical rainbow unicorn money tree, no sir, but you can be a Sustainable CT sponsor. Find out how at sustainablect.org. We are very fortunate to have Bill McKibben joining us today. Bill is an author, educator, and tireless advocate for the earth and our environment. In addition to writing 20 books so far on the issue of saving our planet, Bill is the founder of Third Act, a group that organizes people over the age of 60 for action on climate and justice. He also helped found 350.org, the first global grassroots climate campaign, which has organized protests for climate action on every continent, including Antarctica. His 1989 book, The End of Nature, is regarded as the first book for a general audience about climate change and has appeared in 24 languages. Bill's work appears regularly in periodicals from The New Yorker to Rolling Stone. He serves as the Schumann Distinguished Scholar in Environmental Studies at Middlebury College, go Panthers, as a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and he has won the Gandhi Peace Prize as well as honorary degrees from 20 colleges and universities. Foreign Policy named him to its inaugural list of the world's 100 most important global thinkers. Well, that's a hell of a resume. Though I bet for all the honors bestowed upon you over the years, the one of the most import is that having a woodland gnat
True that.
named after you. That's got to be pretty special.
That is nice.
Okay. Bill McKibben, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me today. I really do appreciate it. We've asked you here to talk about your latest project, Sunday, which is coming up on the autumnal equinox, September 21st, thereabouts. This is a huge deal, especially given our current political climate. Please tell us about Sunday 2025. What is it, from your perspective, what you hope to accomplish, short and long term with the initiative?
Well, first of all, what a pleasure to join you and to get to be, if only virtually, in the Nutmeg State and just think about what's coming up. So Sunday, if I had to say what the goal was, it is to get across to people the idea that clean energy, power from the sun and wind, is no longer to be thought of as alternative energy. That's how we've been saying it for generations now, and it got too stuck in our head. It causes us constantly to think of it, I think, as kind of the Whole Foods of energy, nice but pricey. We need to get it through our skulls that this is the Costco of energy. Cheap, available in bulk, on the shelf, ready to go. It's not alternative anymore. It's obvious, main sense, common stream. And if we can get that through our minds, then the possibilities for doing things like winning some fights in Congress and in state legislatures and at city halls gets much, much, much easier. The reason that we're doing it now is because really the facts on the ground have changed and changed dramatically. For most of the period of the climate movement, for most of the last 40 years, the problem has been that fossil fuel was cheap, cheaper than clean energy. That meant we had to pursue an endless number of strategies, mostly designed to make fossil fuel more expensive. So carbon taxes or stopping pipelines or divesting to drive up the cost of capital or whatever it was. But sometime in the last 3 or 4 years, we crossed some invisible line. The engineers had done their job so remarkably that all of a sudden, the cost of energy from the sun and the wind was cheaper than the cost of burning coal or gas or oil. We now live on an Earth where the cheapest way to make energy is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. And if we take that seriously, then so much will change. This could be one of the great epochal moments in our civilization's history. But we've got to take it seriously fast, because fast is how climate change is coming at us now.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, just follow up on the whole notion of our political climate being what it is. I mean, the cost of solar energy has come down dramatically of late, yes, based on manufacturing from China.
Yep.
And tax credits from our own domestically. Yep. Now, both of those are going away. Yep. Do you imagine that the cost of producing solar energy is going to remain low and competitive? I mean, oil is down to $60 a barrel.
So let's talk first about the world as a whole. Yes, there's no question that this remains the cheapest energy, and by far, and it gets cheaper every year. I just looked today at the numbers for the Chinese had their big annual auction for bids for energy storage for the grid, which has dropped 95% in the last decade, but it dropped another 30% last year. The numbers are astonishing across all these things. So the world is clearly going to go down this path. What the US is trying to do under the Trump administration is build a kind of giant wall of tariffs and laws and things behind which we can isolate ourselves. And perhaps that'll happen. I mean, it's possible that 20 years from now, we'll be a kind of museum of internal combustion engines and coal-fired power plants and things that people come to the way that, we go to Epcot Center to see the world of tomorrow, and people will come to the US to see, what the 20th century looked like.
The world of yesterday.
If we do that, then we cause ourselves an incredible amount of economic pain and hurt. I don't think I don't think that we're going to have the same 40-year interregnum that we did when Reagan stomped on Jimmy Carter's solar plans in 1980. I think it's going to break faster than that, because I think the economic logic is just overwhelming. Look, the place in America that's putting up at the moment renewable energy far faster than any other is that progressive paradise known as Texas. And they're doing it just based solely on the numbers. And so I'm hopeful, but it's going to take a push. That's why we're doing Sunday. If we didn't have time pressure, if climate change wasn't looming over us, then economic gravity would do the work by itself eventually. We wouldn't have to worry. 40 years from now, we're going to run the planet on sun and wind because it's so cheap. But if it takes us anything like 40 years to get there, then the planet we run on sun and wind will be a broken planet. So our job is to force the spring here. It's to catalyze this reaction, hence Sunday. And there are things that can happen without Washington. For instance, if you look at the price of putting solar panels on your roof, it's about 3 or 4 times as much money to do it in the US as in Australia or the EU. The price of panels is more or less the same, even with tariffs. They're still a fairly small part of the price of this project. The difference is what we call soft costs. the marketing and especially the costs of getting all the permits and the time that it takes, because the building inspector and the electrical inspector and all that are coming out, and it's 2 months and 3 months, and on and on and on. The In Australia, you literally call up the guy, the contractor, the tradie, as they call him in Australia. He appears at your house a few days later, climbs up on the roof, puts up your solar system, permits it himself, and turns it on. And then the government comes and inspects one of every 20 or 30 or whatever to make sure that the guys are doing the job okay. And they are, and we know they're doing the job okay because there's not like a big rash of rooftop fires caused by bad solar panels, burning down large swaths of Australia.
Right.
In this country, we have 20,000 separate jurisdictions. Every town and county does this their own way. And that's the thing that slows it down and drives up the price. And thank heaven Donald Trump doesn't have anything to do with any of that. That's your local mayor, your local building commission, your county commissioners, whoever. And we need to get on them to change this. And the good news is that in the last year, California, New Jersey, and Maryland, New Jersey just last week, have adopted basically instant solar permitting. They're using this tool called the Solar App that was developed in the Biden years under the National Renewable Energy Lab that just allows you to get a very, very quick permit to put these things on your roof as long as it falls within the parameters of the right technology and the right size and so on.
Yeah. We're looking at streamlining as well in Connecticut and using apps to facilitate that, and following that same lead makes perfect sense. You mentioned Jimmy Carter, and and the reason this is kind of near and dear to my heart, because I was going to school in Washington, D.C. at the time when he put solar panels on the roof and declared Sunday.
Yep.
That guy was way ahead of his time. And he really was. And then of course Reagan came in and trounced it all and tore off the solar panels.
Jim, I found those solar panels in about 2006 or so. They moved them from the White House when Reagan tore them down to the roof of a cafeteria of a tiny college in rural Maine. They were still working fine. And so they gave me a couple of them.
Yeah.
And some students drove them back to Washington, doing sort of stops along the way to demonstrate that they were still working fine.
Yeah.
And we tried to give them to the Obama people to put. In those days, they were still too scared of the taint of Jimmy Carter to take them. But, Biden finally got the message, did the right thing, and only to watch it get turned around in a matter of weeks.
Turned around again. But what does this Sunday have in common with, or not, with what Jimmy Carter tried to do in the 70s?
So some of the things that it has in common are some of the same people. The great Dennis Hayes, who started the first Earth Day and then did that Sunday program in 1978, has been a big help in all this work. Still around and kicking and doing great stuff. The difference is, and it's the crucial difference, and I was just writing about this for the Times, so I have the numbers in my head. Literally, solar power is 99% cheaper than it was in 1980. The point of what Carter was trying to do was put enough money in the budget to spur enough research to drive the price sharply down. That's what Reagan stopped. We don't have to do that anymore. That work's been done. And it was done not because of anything we did. It was done largely because of stuff that the Germans did about 25 years ago. When the Green Party held the balance of power in Germany, they passed this law that called the Energiewende, the energy transition, that really committed a lot of government money to paying for energy off people's rooftops. It was expensive for the Germans to do that, but the demand that it created allowed the Chinese to get good at manufacturing cheap solar panels.
Generate a market and create manufacturing to meet the
demand.
Right.
Exactly right. And that's really the kind of miracle that the world is now And so now it's not German rooftops. Now, in the last year, it's been, for example, Pakistani rooftops. Pakistan's right next to China. They have expensive and unreliable electric grid.
Hmm.
So last year, just working by themselves, usually using TikTok videos as their technical manuals, the Pakistanis built the equivalent of half the country's national electric grid in 8 months out of solar panels.
Oh,
It's truly amazing to go look at Google Earth images of the rooftops in Lahore or Islamabad and compare them from 2 or 3 years ago to now.
yeah.
Entirely different because every flat surface has a solar panel on the top.
We got to get there, Bill. We got to do that. We got.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: so, given the political climate, and what would you say to Trump supporters or naysayers of any stripe to try to convince them to support Sunday, or even just the concept of
Yeah.
solar energy, so that this doesn't become this ping-ponging thing continuously, where or pendulum, pick your metaphor.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I
How would you
mean,
convince people?
true uh, mega, diehards, I have no idea because I have given up
Right.
trying to understand how mind works. But principled conservatives, not really a problem. We find very high support for solar power and wind power across the partisan spectrum.
Okay.
I think it comes from different places. My impression on talking with a lot of conservatives is that they love, say, rooftop solar because it truly makes their home their castle. And now
Yeah.
they don't have to depend on anyone for anything and
There's that libertarian
hunker down
element
in the
to
basement with your
it.
AK-47 and you're all,
Yeah.
you know. Whereas, the liberals are all like, oh, we're networking the groovy power of the sun
Sure.
and um,
Sure.
we can work with that. Those kind of differences are workable. Um, so I don't think that's the problem here. The problem is the extraordinary stranglehold that the fossil fuel industry has, especially on the Republican Party. You know, the numbers that are cheering us are terrifying them. California, which is the fourth largest economy in the world, is this summer, 2025, using 40% less natural gas to generate electricity than they did in 2023. That's because they've put up so many solar panels that almost every day, for long stretches of the day, California produces more than 100% of the power it uses renewably. That means that at night, the biggest source of supply on the grid are now batteries that spent the afternoon soaking up excess sunshine.
Right.
A 40% drop in sales to the fourth largest economy in the world gets your attention if you sell oil and gas. That's why these guys spent more money in the last election cycle by far than they've ever spent before, and why they've essentially captured our government for the time being, our federal government. Uh, uh, but it's not without a fight. The Texas legislature this year had a whole string of bills designed to monkey around with renewable energy,
Hmm.
and they were like affirmative action for natural gas. If you put up 5 gigawatts of solar, you had to put up 5 gigawatts of natural gas. It was like a quota system. But before they could pass the laws, they heard from enough people in rural Texas saying, no, no, our school system depends on the revenue from our wind turbines, do not mess around with this, that the Texas legislature backed off and decided not to do anything.
Yeah.
So it's not that these fights aren't winnable, but they have to be fought. And that's why we're doing Sunday. I mean, you got to start somewhere rebuilding the kind of basic support for clean energy around the country.
Sure. Now I know you have other places you need to be. Can I ask you one more question? You have
Of
time for
course.
one
Yes,
more?
absolutely.
Well, because I'm very interested in Kathy Hochul decided that we want to build a new nuclear power plant in New York. And this is the first time in a generation that we're looking at building a new nuclear power plant. Seems to be having at least a lot more attention now, kind of resurgence of attention brought to it. I might describe it as, I don't know, The Walking Dead, but we won't for a moment. How do you feel about this? Do you think that that nuclear power has a place in our energy future or not? What's your take on
Truthfully, I don't spend a huge amount of time thinking about it.
that? Okay.
And the reason is that I don't think it's going to play much of a role. I don't worry that much about the safety stuff. Yeah, it's, not not pristine, but compared with raising the temperature of the planet a couple of degrees,
Well, exactly. Yes.
whatever. The problem is that it's just too expensive. Kathy Hochul wants to spend, roughly the equivalent, roughly as much money building a gigawatt of nuclear power as it would take to build like 10 gigawatts of solar and wind power in New York. It's like burning $20 bills to produce energy. So it's, there's always going to be, the reason that always is going to have a backing is because paradoxically, you can make a lot more money building a nuclear power plant than you can building a solar farm.
Right.
Solar's almost too cheap for its own good. It's hard to get rich doing it because it's easy. You can put up a big solar farm. I mean, a nuclear power plant produces about a gigawatt of energy. We put up a gigawatt's worth of solar panels on this planet every 12 hours now. So we're in essence building 2 nuclear power plants a day. You just wouldn't know it because it's all scattered around everywhere. I think this is a rounding error in the final disposition here. So I don't spend a huge amount of time obsessing about it one way or the other. I think the focus is on what we can do with the sun. And for people who really, really like nuclear power, and there are people who just really have a visceral affection for it, I always just tell them, well, in that case, you're going to love solar because it's just a way of using the largest nuclear reactor in the solar system.
There you go.
One that's situated a safe 93 million miles up in the sky.
Yeah. It is a fascinating concept, though, that there isn't enough money to be made in solar energy. There isn't big lobby behind it, a big industry behind it that's going to go lobby Congress. And you can't follow the money to some place, the pressure to build in the market. That is interesting how that's going to.
We're going to have to DIY a part of this, guys.
Yeah. So let me ask. So are you pessimistic, optimistic, a little of both? How do you see the future?
I know too much climate science to ever be optimistic. Things are breaking and breaking badly. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, for the first time in the 40 years that I've been working on this, there's something that we can do that's scalable and that will make a significant difference in how hot the planet gets. Sadly, way too late to stop global warming. Mm-hmm. That's not on the menu. But this helps slow it down and reduce its eventual impact. And it's always worth remembering that every 10th of a degree Celsius that we raise the temperature puts about 100 million people out of a safe climate zone. So everything we can do has extraordinary impact. And so we should do it. That's my very simplistic way of thinking about all of this.
Well, simple is good on some occasions, and this is one of them. And I want to thank you again, Bill, for being here and giving us a little time.
I can't wait to see the pictures from around Connecticut and everywhere else on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, we're going to be out in forest, definitely. And
all right, man. Such a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Take care, y'all.
We'll return to our program in just a moment. You've been listening to The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. If you're not yet a subscriber to Actions and Impact, the Sustainable CT newsletter, you could be missing out on some very important information to you, to your organization, and to your town. Accept no substitutes. Do yourself a favor and subscribe today. And you can do that where? At sustainablect.org, of course. And while you're out there tripping the web fantastic, don't forget to join us on Facebook for some fun and interesting stuff. Guaranteed safe for children and pets. Come on, be our friend, won't you? At facebook.com/sustainableCT. And yes, of course, we're LinkedIn. Search for Sustainable CT from your LinkedIn page. You'll find us right there, being all LinkedIn and media social. And be sure to join us for our July coffee hour on July 17th. Jeremy Schulich, Deputy Director at Clean Transportation Communities of Southern Connecticut, will be giving a presentation on Charging Smart, a program for municipal governments that offers free technical assistance and certifications on electric vehicle readiness. Charging Smart is run by the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, the IREC, which some may know from experience with their Soul Smart program, and offers guided and vetted flexible pathways to advancing EVs and charging infrastructure at the local level. Remember, you can join Sustainable CT for virtual informal discussions most third Thursdays of each month. We share program updates and resources, explore your questions, and strengthen the network of Sustainable CT champions. Yes, we do. These sessions are free and open to all. Welcome back. We are talking about Sunday today. We just had Bill McKibben on, and he's given us a lot to think about. We are especially happy to have two additional guests with us today, both of whom are here representing Third Act Connecticut, the group spearheading Sunday in Connecticut. Lynn Stoddard hardly needs an introduction, but I'll attempt one anyway. Lynn is the former executive director and founding organizer of Sustainable CT. She now has an active role in Third Act Connecticut. Welcome back, Lynn. It's always great to see you. And she's joined by Davida Foy Crabtree, who describes herself as mostly retired, but you'd mostly hardly know that because she's very active in Third Act as well, until recently serving as a co-facilitator for that organization. Davida has also served as a minister with the United States Church of Christ for many years. Davida, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you both. Davida, if you don't mind, I want to begin with you because before we return to the topic of Sunday, which we will, I just want to take a moment to hear about Third Act because not everybody knows about this, and it's very cool. And I think we should tell some people. Now, this is a group founded by Bill, right? And recruits and organizes retirees for climate action. Is that right? Tell us about Third Act and what it's been doing here in Connecticut and how you became involved.
Third Act is a movement of elders across the country working on issues of climate and democracy, precisely because we want to leave a different legacy than our generation is currently leaving. I got involved when I read a New York Times article 2.5 years ago that Bill had written called Codger Power. And I thought, well, I'm a codger now.
Okay.
And I immediately hopped on the Third Act. The idea of Third Act is our first act was our childhood and education. Our second act was our professions, our work era. And our third act is now we're free. We've got many of us some assets to use, resources, experience, commitment. And many of us were raised in the generation of Jimmy Carter and earlier. And so these issues of climate and democracy are very real to us. Mm-hmm. And we're pretty laser focused on that because these are the two fulcrums, or the single fulcrum really, that on which our future depends, and the future for my two little twin great-granddaughters. I think about them all the time. That's part of why I'm engaged.
And it's interesting because when in our middle years, in the second act, we're so busy working on the profession and paying the mortgage, and trying to do all that stuff. I think, because you have that passion when you're younger, and you don't have a whole lot of experience, or for that matter, education and intellect. I mean, you're still forming a lot of stuff, but you have a lot of passion. And by the time you retire, I know this because I'm an old guy too. You rediscover some elements of that passion that you had before that, you might have kind of sidetracked for a while. But now you got experience. You got education under your belt. You've widely read. You've learned a few things over the years. You can't help but learn a couple of things living on the planet for 60, 70, 80 years.
There are 100,000 of us across the country who are Third Act. About 700 or 800 here in Connecticut. We only formed 2 years ago.
Yeah. And that's astonishing for 2 years. I mean, that's a great growth.
Yeah, it's been excellent. People have just really been excited about this work. And part of the reason we do what we do, I mean, there are some things that we do that takes a certain amount of conviction and risk to stand up for democracy right now, to stand up for climate. And our attitude is, who better than us? We have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They're not going to attach something to our resume. And if they do, we'll wear it as a badge of honor.
So what? Right. You're not going to worry about impressing the next employer all that much. Lynn, how did you become involved with Third Act? I suspect that Sunday is something near and dear to your heart. Am I right?
Yeah. So I've been retired from Sustainable CT pretty much exactly a year. As I was thinking about my third act and leaving Sustainable CT, I knew that I couldn't sit around and figure out how I was going to entertain myself all day. I needed to continue to work on climate change and communities and connectedness. And so when I learned about Third Act, it was one of the pieces that came in place to help me be ready to retire, because it provided a place for me. It's kind of like Sustainable CT has a framework to help towns do these things. Like we set it up so that you got the action roadmap of best practices, you got accolades from being certified and so on. You got a support system. And Third Act is really that for doing this kind of work. Now, for me, there's a group of people who are passionate about it. You got your team, you got your support, you got your Bill McKibbens to inspire you. And yeah, it's really awesome. So I was really excited to get involved when my time freed up a little bit. And something else about it, there are these things called guiding principles of Third Act, which really hooked me. It's, yes, we work on climate and democracy, but how do we do that work? And I'm just going to read a couple of them because it just struck a chord. These are the kinds of people I want to interact with. This is what we pledge to each other. Be kind, be inclusive, boost others, be humble, take care of yourselves, back up the youth, be generous but not to a fault, be accountable, be creative, and we're in this together. That's beautiful. Who would not want to work with such a group of people?
That's as good as it gets. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's great. And you're right. Sustainable CT, of course, has these action roadmap that we speak to a lot of this. There are 6 or 7 directly related in terms of energy management, alternative energy, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we can guide towns through this a great deal, and it's very helpful to have that support from a mass movement of people talking about we can do this, and actually get the community behind it. So what else do you hope to do? It's not just about energy then. What else is it about?
Third Act is involved in tons of stuff, and Davida can speak to a lot of that better than I can. For me, how we founded Sustainable CT based on being the yay-sayers, not the naysayers.
Right.
You get points for promoting reusable bags, not for banning plastic bags. You get points for putting in clean energy, not banning fracking. There's a lot to fight back on, and a lot of that is very necessary right now. But I gravitate towards the positive solutions and the path forward, rather than the pushback on all the things that we need to push back on. It's just personally not my thing. So this positive movement of Sunday saying, look at the progress we've made. I mean, Bill just talked about the price of solar power being 90%, 95% less and whatever than it was 10 years ago or something. I mean, these are huge. We've accomplished a ton. The time is now for this to recognize this solution. I mean, he gave so many good points about why solar is the answer. And so I really love working on Sunday and kind of that positive. There's a lot of gloom and doom, but this is good stuff. This is how we get there.
Yeah. Davida, how do you hope to involve Connecticut municipalities and communities in Sunday? I mean, we're reaching out with webinars and, promotion and, trying to communicate and engage. How do we involve, how do you hope to involve communities for this?
We are really excited about the potential for every community in Connecticut being tapped into Sunday, whether it's in their own community, such as the work that's going on right now in Branford and Cornwall and Salisbury and Fairfield and all across the map,
Yeah.
or whether it's combining, like in the quiet corner or the not so quiet corner, around of multiple communities coming together into a single event. But we want to reach into every community and provide the opportunity for people in every town and city to learn about the potential that solar and other forms of renewable energy offer to them, and become a part of a movement to really transform Connecticut so that Connecticut can become a true leader in renewable energy and in being a place that's healthy. So many of the non-renewable energies like fracked gas or methane, et cetera, are so unhealthy. I keep saying, if you care about the future of human beings, you need to care about renewable energy and about climate issues. So we're looking for leaders in every single community across the state to step forward and say, I'm not much of a leader, but I'd be willing to work on this. And maybe your library or one of the churches in town or a synagogue, or maybe your Sustainable Connecticut affiliate in town will join with you, and you'll discover that there is so much energy out there for this work.
And you don't have to be retired.
And you don't have to be retired. No, Third Act doesn't check IDs for age. And we really always work in collaboration. So we have 20 or 25 partners that are joining with us on this, who come across the age and racial and perspective vantage points, and it's cool. It's just great work.
How did I heard that the marquee event is going to be in New Britain? Is that right? Did I hear that right?
That's correct.
How did that come about? Why New Britain? What's the thought process there?
Well, we were looking for a location where people of all kinds of backgrounds would be comfortable. We wanted a location that is, of course, still hurricane season. And so we wanted a place that had both outdoor and indoor venues. We wanted a partner, not just a location. And so Dr. Charles Button, who teaches geography and climate, stepped forward and invited us and is our partner. So this is, again, another way of collaboration. And it's centrally located. It's on a bus route, so everybody can get there. It's going to be easy to access. And the idea is tons of activities for people of all ages and conditions. So it's going to include, we expect an environmental magician, music, arts, presenters, lots of booths and tents with ways to engage, face painting, storytelling, all kinds of wonderful things on the 21st, Sunday, the 21st, from 12 to 4 at Central Connecticut State.
Lynn, what's your thoughts on this? What's the estimated attendance? Do you have any idea?
Well, you, Jim, of all people, are the
because I like the numbers. I gotta have the numbers.
You like the numbers. I think we could get I don't know, 500 to 1,000 people.
Okay.
We'll see.
And think of it as a fair, just like an agricultural fair, except this is an energy fair. This is
sure.
Come celebrate the sun and enjoy.
Now, how do you set this up so that you're not competing with yourselves and with other venues who are doing stuff? I mean, we heard about the big big event that's going to happen in New York. But there are going to be events all over Connecticut as well. And and it's sort of like having one Dunkin' Donuts down the street from another Dunkin' Donuts. You're not going to be so you're not really competing. But sometimes it can feel like that for people.
Well, so it's set up so that there should be one main Sunday event in states that are participating on Sunday, September 21st.
And everybody else can be on Saturday.
The others are on the local or regional events are on Saturday. So we're supporting them and building out the main event. We'll have resources and information on how do I get solar? How do I get solar in my town and all that at both, that we can funnel out through the local events and provide at the statewide event at Central Connecticut State University on Sunday.
Okay.
There's a little sense of urgency about helping people to learn how they can access solar because some credits are going away at December 31st. And so September is perfect timing for that. And we really see all of this as building toward developing a movement across the state so that it's not just what can I do, it's what can we do together in transforming our state.
One of the things I wanted to ask Bill, and I didn't, is really that concept of where does this going to go? I mean, it's all well and good to have an event, and everybody goes out for it and has a good time and pats themselves on the back and says, "Aren't we good people? We've done our business. We've demonstrated or partied for solar energy. Now I can go home and feel good." But what happens, the day after and the day after and weeks and months afterwards, especially and I digress a bit, but in Connecticut, we're lucky we have a somewhat progressive congressional delegation. We're not, even the Republicans here aren't terribly mean-spirited like they are in other places. But nationally, how does this become a movement? How does this dovetail or intertwine with a movement to really make a change in how the country addresses our energy future? Do you either one of you, Lynn, what do you think about that?
Well, Third Act is kind of described Sunday as an exclamation point. So the event itself. So there are things leading up to it. We're getting all these partners together. We're creating storytelling about amazing solar installations across Connecticut so people realize how much is going on. Mm-hmm. There will be the events to get out information on the weekend of the 20th and the 21st. And afterwards, a lot of that information and those engagement activities will be, what can I do? So the follow-up on, this is how I get solar on my home. I didn't know that school in the next town was net zero. My town's building a school. Maybe we can learn from that town. Whatever it is, the legislative session's coming up. I heard that we really need to pressure Connecticut lawmakers to enable community solar, and so on. So we do not plan to have it be a 1 day or 2 day event and drop it. It is, as you say, building a movement and continuing onward afterwards.
Yeah, and that's Connecticut. And then if you multiply that all across the country, you begin to realize that while we are rooting this very much in state by state, it will burgeon into an amazing movement across the country. It's the way these things work.
It's just like the ripples on the Sustainable Seed logo.
There we go.
Little points of towns with influence rippling out to our borders and beyond.
Yeah. Local action, statewide impact.
Yes.
Statewide action, national impact.
Right.
I mean, and especially as Bill pointed out, California is one of the biggest countries in the world. When you compare all the countries in the world, California is one of the larger ones, even if it is just a state. And so actions by a lot of these states can make a very big difference nationally. And another thing I found very interesting about what he was saying is that less and less so, it depends on what the national government does, right? Because the opportunity here is so diffuse and so cheap and so do it yourself. I mean, and it would be nice to have tax credits. Yes, it would be great to have lower tariff policies or even sane tariff policies. But it almost doesn't matter what the feds do. We're going to do this anyway, the ability to do it anyway, and certainly the reason and purpose to do it anyway. So, yeah. Okay. Now, Lynn, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and ask you, because I'm just the communications guy. I bet you know a heck a lot more. These things do connect with our action roadmap, right? Have you given that much thought at all? I mean,
yes. Well, I mean, certainly the climate leader designation from Sustainable CT is full of actions that not just solar, but energy efficiency, solar permitting, streamlining, all that stuff is clearly related and moving the needle on climate and what we need to be doing in our communities. To the very specific, will I get points question towards certification.
Everybody loves the numbers.
Towns would get points under 8.1, hold a sustainability event, sure, right? But there are so many other connections related to town policy, programs, and decisions that influence renewable energy, access to renewable energy, permitting, and so on, that I think that, and I will say, it's not just, we're not like solar only. Of course, wind, any renewable energy. We're very interested in energy efficiency and promoting the use of heat pumps, all the climate solutions, as well as electric vehicles. So there are a number of sustainable CT actions on advancing EV adoption. So those certainly align as well.
Yeah, I mean, saving energy is almost as good as generating it better. You know, I mean, if it's the more
it's first on the hierarchy. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
That's
just
pretty
for
important.
Waste, for energy, it's energy efficiency.
Every kilowatt hour you don't use.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty good.
I just wanted to add that I think one of the other pieces for us has to do with discovering ways for solar and other renewable energies and energy efficiency to be available to underserved communities.
Yeah.
To environmental justice communities, to people who think it is out of reach for them, and it may not be. It probably isn't. And so that's one of the things we hope will carry out from September 21st into the future, particularly at the legislature.
Yeah, that is a huge deal, especially in terms of affordability, accessibility. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
DEEP has issued an RFP for more solar for all promotions. So solar for all, meaning solar for low income residents and everyone. We've had those campaigns and support before. The Green Bank is my understanding is the Green Bank's going to be helping to manage that program. So messaging about new and renewed programs for solar energy and low income residents is a critical piece of this.
Question about, it's the day after this thing. It's now September 22nd. What does success look like to you? When the day is done, what happened that made you feel like, okay, this worked? Davida, what do you think?
Well, for me, it's that a whole whale of a lot of people all across the state over a period of a few days had an amazing experience of turning their faces differently toward the sun. And realizing that what we need to do is harness that power instead of burning fuel from the earth, that harnessing is always better than combustion. And another would be that we have a whole lot of new people who are saying, we can do this. We can make this happen. How can I help? What can I do? And that for me would be major. Who knows? There are all kinds of things that could come out of this. We're not in the process of designing those, but I think we're seed planting.
Lynn, what do you think?
Well, I think that success to me looks like, yes, people learned a lot, got engaged, got activated, but that they also had fun, that kids were involved, that it was a new creative way of learning and getting excited and engaged. and that people are finding their people, like other people. I didn't know you lived in Avon. Me too. Hey, let's make this happen. Whatever. So hopefully connecting people will be a big outcome of it as well.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for doing this. I really do appreciate it. I hope we're going to have a great Sunday, and we'll keep doing our best to make it happen. Right?
We are so grateful for your help, Sustainable
Thank
CT,
you.
and it's been wonderful, Jim.
Thanks a bunch. We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. As always, this program is recorded, produced, and copyrighted, by Sustainable CT. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, the Common Sense Fund. Special thanks to our guest, Bill McKibben, and to Lynn Stoddard and Davida Crabtree as well, for everything they do in defense of our planet. And thanks to everyone for taking local actions that have a statewide impact.